Hello, mathematicians. This is Miss Armgart, welcoming you back to another instructional video. Today, we're going to go over ratios, but before we do, we are going to review fractions because we just finished all of that. So for example, if we look at this pizza, we have 13/8 pizzas. Well, we know we can turn that into a mixed number. We have one whole pizza, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the eighths. This is our mixed number. The fraction has one label. There is one whole pizza and 5/8 of a pizza. So how are ratios different? Because they look really similar. So when we see ratios like there are 13 pizzas for 8 people, you can still turn that fraction into a mixed number. That would be one whole pizza and 5/8 of a pizza per person. But notice we still have pizzas and people. We haven't lost those words. We can describe this as one whole pizza and 5/8 per person, meaning there's a ratio, there's an amount of pizza each person gets. The labels are super duper important, folks, because ratios, you are labeling both numbers. You can also use your factors to make equivalent ratios, make ratios that are the same with a common factor. So 13 pizzas, if we multiply by 2, because you'll see here we have two different groups of people, that gives us 26 pizzas, and 8 times 2 is 16 people. We still have a pizza and 5/8 per person, but we have increased both the pizza and the people by the same amount. They have all been multiplied by 2. Whatever you do to the numerator, you do to the denominator. We can apply those same fraction rules to our ratio. Now we are going to look at another example. There are 3 different ways to write a ratio. Number 1 is to use a phrase, describe it with words. So there are 4 Snickers to every 2 Twix. So we're still labeling different things. Much like our video that we watched, our rap, for every 4 Snickers, there are 2 Twix. And 4 Snickers for every 2 Twix. These are 3 different ways to say the same thing, to use the phrase to compare the amount of Snickers to the amount of Twix. Now, most often in math, you are going to see the fraction. So when we think math, you're going to get this fraction. Now, again, we can multiply. We can also divide by a common factor. And if we divide both of those, we get a proportional relationship. Proportion meaning we've kept the same scale. For every 2 Twix, there are 4 Snickers. For every 1 Twix, there are 2 Snickers. That's the same relative proportional relationship. We are keeping the same relative amounts. There are more Snickers than there are Twix, but we are multiplying and dividing by common factors to get that relationship, that proportional relationship. So fractions are the second way. A colon, so the dots, are the third way. So we're going to use the same numbers, 4 Snickers for every 2 Twix. If we double this, double means multiplied by 2, we would have 8 Snickers and 4 Twix. So you can use a sentence, you can use a fraction, you can use a colon. They're all showing the exact same thing. I already talked about brownies. We're going to talk about some delicious melty chocolate truffles because equivalent ratios or proportional ratios are often found in recipes, because recipes are where we want to scale up and scale our recipe down depending on how many things we have. So we are going to take this recipe, and yes, it's Mr. Meyer's. It's delicious and it works. Feel free to take this recipe and make it. We're just going to look at the sugar and the butter. So we want to know, if I have a cup of sugar, how much butter am I going to have? Well, first let's look at our original ratio here. For every half cup of sugar, we have 2 teaspoons of butter. Remember, we can rewrite this as a fraction. So I'm going to do half cup of sugar, CS for sugar. And we have 2 teaspoons, that's the TSP, of butter. So we know we want a total of 1 cup of sugar. Well, 1/2 times 2, if you double 2 halves make a whole. So whatever we do to the numerator, we got to do to the denominator. We're going to get 1 cup of sugar and 4 teaspoons of butter. Now, over here, we have 2 different problems. If you need to triple your recipe, you are going to multiply everything by 3. To triple means times 3. And our last problem, if you need to cut the recipe in half, so we're going to multiply by what? So double check your answers. You can always ask a neighbor for help. Don't forget to fill in your vocabulary. Staple this into your journal. I am Miss Armgart saying happy solving.